services, which provides us with technical expertise and cloud credits. And additionally, we are deeply appreciative of the National Library for providing us with physical and virtual venues for many of our events, including this one. If you would like to learn more about our community and learn more about our upcoming events, you can join us. You can join our Discord server. You can find the QR code on the screen. And you can also visit the URL optionally. All right, without further ado, let me now hand the stage over to my colleague Seung-Jun, who will be presenting us about Retrieval Augmented Generation. And throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and Seung-Jun will address them at the end. All right, Seung-Jun, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Meraldo. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your time off this weekend, which is really sunny, which is great. It's been really wet the last few days. And thank you for joining us. And yeah, I understand now it's after lunch, so I hope to not bore you and lull you into a post-lunch nap. All right, so let's get started. Oh, I just forgot to introduce myself. So I am Seung-Jun from Agency. I'm a core volunteer member, and I have some data science background. And yeah, and basically all of us at Agency are pretty passionate about generative AI stuff and spreading its skills and its benefits. Okay, so let's quickly go through the agenda. So I will be giving you a quick introduction on the concepts of Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG in short. And I'll provide you with some examples of RAG-enhanced applications and services that are already available, most of them free. And also we'll be doing, or rather building our own text document RAG app on a service called AWS Partyrock. It's a free service and it's great, really easy to use. And finally, we'll have a Q&A, which should last about 15 minutes after half an hour of this presentation. Okay, so let's get into it. Oops. Okay. So let's start off with the problem with large language models. Well, this problem is known as knowledge cutoff. The problem is that the large language models, they know a lot of things. They are trained on a huge mountain of text, basically the entire internet. And the problem is that it's trained up to a certain point in time. So anything else after that, the large language model doesn't know anymore. So the challenge is static knowledge. And so the solution is very simple, right? Let's just keep the AI up to date. So how do we go about keeping our large language models and AI up to date? So the very first one is retraining, or basically you just retrain the model on a more updated data set. So yeah, you get more up-to-date data in the model's memory. But the cons of it is that it's super expensive and super slow. Obviously, only the big companies like Meta, XAI, Google, they are the only ones that can afford the amount of infrastructure, the data centers, and the energy required to retrain a model. Okay, and the next part is fine-tuning. Okay, sort of similar to retraining, but actually you can permanently update the model's memory, but instead of retraining, you just fine-tune the model on an updated or very specific set of data. So it can be expensive and slow to fine-tune your model, but you also won't get real-time updates because anything after that the model doesn't know. And another thing that you have to take note of is that models can suffer from something called catastrophic forgetting or interference, which means that when you teach the model new things, it could possibly forget things that it has learned before. So this is something that developers and the AI engineers need to take note of. Finally, we come to RAG, okay, Retrieval Augmented Generation. The pros of it is that your large language model can have access to up-to-date and current data without retraining or fine-tuning the model. The cons of this is that you actually, there's a requirement for keeping all these databases up to date. Right. So let's talk about RAG. Okay, so RAG combines the brain power of large language models with new sources of dynamic data. These new sources of dynamic data can be text data, it can be numerical data, it can be all sorts of data, including the internet. All right, there's basically no limit on what this can be. But for all intents and purposes, this presentation will specifically address the concepts used in a text document RAG. All right. So with RAG, your large language models have access to up-to-date information, and that's what we are going to be talking about. So RAG enhanced large language model, what is the difference? Okay, so first we start off with your traditional large language model, where you have a question and you ask that question in a large language model, and your large language model will crunch a lot of numbers, and then you'll generate a response that hopefully answers your question. All right, so this is your traditional large language model. Now, when you add a RAG component to it, it'll look like this. Okay, so there's this extra smart retriever part and this specific knowledge base part. All right, you might think that there are actually two parts, but usually in practice, these two parts are deeply integrated with one another. So usually the knowledge base would have already a very well integrated retrieval kind of system. All right, so let's talk about this part, the smart retriever and the knowledge base part. Okay, before any kind of RAG app can be implemented, there actually pre-processing has to be done on the text documents. All right, so the very first thing that has to be done is something called chunking. All right, this is to convert text documents to chunks. So what are chunks? All right, chunks can be, every X number of words, you have a chunk, like maybe every 10 words is one chunk, and should the chunks overlap, should the next chunk have the last two words of the previous chunk, and so on. The chunks also can be semantic in nature. They can be split into paragraphs or sentences. And often this is the most practical way of chunking for most text documents. All right, so over here, we have a little example. So we have this paragraph over here of 3 sentences, and you could, in a RAG kind of a database, you could split it into 3 separate chunks, each of 3 sentences. Okay. So after you split your chunk, your text document into chunks, the chunks have to go through a process called embedding. So what is embedding? Okay, this is the process of converting chunks to embeddings, or in other words, a vector kind of representation. Or in layman's term, you convert the sentences into a series of numbers. And why this needs to be done is because computers perceive the meaning of words and sentences differently compared to humans. Okay, and so over here we have this hypothetical example. We have a series of phrases down here, and over here we can see that there are these 3 dimensions: time, mood, and outdoors. Okay, so we are converting this phrase into a series of 3 numbers. All right, so each phrase will have a different series of numbers. In reality, all right, these phrases will have vector representations that could be hundreds of numbers or even thousands of numbers. It actually really depends on the type of embedding model that's used to convert the chunks into these vectors. Okay, but we are not going there today. All right, that's a bit more technical. All right, so when the chunks are converted into a series of numbers, and then when you plot it out in a vector, in a sort of a graphical representation, the vectors that are closer together will have meaning that's more similar to one another. All right, so over here, the lion is the king of the jungle and the tiger hunts in the forest. So they're kind of similar in a sense. They're talking about big cats and where they live in. So you can see that these vectors will be closer together compared to this one where everybody lives in New York. Okay, so after the embedding is done, then we have to find some place to store all these embeddings, right? So this is where the vector store comes into play. So it's basically a place where you store all your embeddings. All right. And this vector database or store may contain the chunk metadata. So for example, your text document could have many pages, many chapters, many sentences, many lines. So the metadata could be, chapter number, the page number, the line number, etc. All right. Oops. Yes. Okay. So this is just a graphical representation. Yeah. Over here, we have 3 different phrases in 3 different languages. What time is it what time is the checkout? One is the Abreizazite. Checkout to wa nanji desu ka? So all these mean the same thing. It's like what time is the checkout, but in different languages. In the vector store, all these vectors should be sort of in the same, closer together compared to other sentences or other chunks. All right. So let's go on. So now that we've gone through this pre-processing part of our text document, we can talk about what happens down here. So for RAG enhanced large language model, we ask the question, all right, to the app. All right, the user queries the app, and the app actually vectorizes the query, meaning that the user's query will need to be converted into embeddings also. All right, and so this vectorized query will go into this area, the smart retriever. And so the document chunks with embeddings most similar to the query vector will be retrieved. So the retrieved documents or retrieved chunks that have meaning most similar to our query will be sent to the large language model along with the original question that we asked. And the large language model will churn through all these things and it will generate a response based on these 2 inputs and generate an answer that's hopefully appropriate and to your liking. Okay, so that's basically how a RAG application works. Okay, so when not to use RAG? Okay, RAG can be very useful. I mean, you can upload like your bank statement and your own personal data that is probably not trained on the internet. Okay, but it's not useful or rather it can be useful, but not ideal when you deal with static data. All right, so historical data that will never change or slowly evolving or highly specialized or niche domains, you're better off actually just fine-tuning your large language model instead, because then you wouldn't have to bother about maintaining your own vector database. All right. So now I'm going to give you some examples of RAG enhanced apps. Okay, so the very first example is that we have chatbots with web search capability. All right, so now there are quite a few of these available right now. One of them is Gemini. Okay, so obviously I asked Gemini about the total winning numbers, and I know that this is not the most updated 13 million one. Yeah, but sure enough, it can search up all this info for me. Thanks to its access to the internet. Also, we have Copilot, and just recently also we have OpenAI joining this area with what you call Search GPT. Yeah, so as the companies are starting to find out that the RAG enhanced kind of search engines is the way to go. Okay, so Singaporeans' number 2 favorite pastime after eating. Traveling, right? So now it's school holidays. So if you have not already tried, try out this Layla.ai. Basically, it's a chat bot that is able to access the Skyscanner and Booking.com and some other travel websites. And so you can just ask it, find me the cheapest flight to Canada and so on and so forth. And it can, produce all these results for you. All right. So it kind of makes it useful in a sense that you don't have to click here, click there on Skyscanner, and sometimes it can be very manual. This one is really just using language to find the information that you want. Right, and another one, document Q&A research and note-taking with multiple sources. So I'm not too sure if you have heard of this application called Notebook LM by Google. Right now, it seems to be one of the most powerful RAG applications. The reason being that you can link a lot of sources to it. You can link even YouTube videos that have transcripts. It has integration with Google Docs, and you can have like, was it up to 30 sources and a total of 2 million tokens / words. And so it can really integrate a lot of different sources, and you can chat about them and ask Google Notebook LM about all these things. So this is really powerful. And it's a standout feature. It's its ability to create a podcast kind where it has 2 computer voices, which sounds super natural. And, yeah, you should try it. It's really good. All right. So if you're more techy, you can check out this Kotaimon. Kotai being the Japanese word for answer. So this is sort of a more hands-on kind of RAG UI application, but requires a little bit more technical knowledge, but you're able to use it with a multitude of large language models. And also Meta is also launching their own version of Notebook LM called Notebook Llama. It's announced, but not yet available. So this will be an interesting space to watch. All right. And also presentation. So I use this tool called Beautiful AI to create a portion of this presentation. So yeah, there are a number of them. All right. So now we are going to move on to a RAG application demo and how you can create your own text-based RAG application. And it will be on this platform called AWS Partyrock. Or you have used Claude, the free version, it'll tell you after a few prompts and all that, oh, you've used up your amount of usage for the day. So AWS Partyrock doesn't have this problem. It has an overall limit on its usage limits, but it's really generous. And you also have a powerful access to powerful large language models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, Llama 3.1, 70B, and Mistral Large 2. So although these models are not the most powerful of versions of these large language models, they are like the middle tier ones, which are really good already. And to be able to access them for free is really a strong perk. All right, it's very simple to use. If you can click and add widgets, you can type on the keyboard, a little bit of prompt engineering, you're good to go. And it also has this auto app generation capability where you can just type in a prompt, you can describe the kind of app that you want to create, and it will do it for you. And you can tweak it later. All right. And also, yeah, there's sort of like an app marketplace where you can browse, duplicate apps and tweak from other users. And it's being constantly updated. All right. So without further ado, let's go and do some Partyrock. Okay, so Partyrock, here we go. All right, so this is the interface of AWS Partyrock. Okay, so you just need to sign in. It's free. You just need your Amazon or Google ID. And if you scroll down, you can browse. You can browse like you can generate images. You can chat about files. This is what we are going to be doing today: chatting about our files or chatting with our files. Okay, you can browse and see, what are the apps that people have created. And this is what I was talking about, the auto app generation. You can just type in, what kind of app would you like to create? And then you can generate. But in this case, we are just going to build it manually. All right. So if I just click build manually, yeah, we'll come to this page where a new app is created. Okay, so how the first thing we need to do is let's click on this slider kind of icon. Basically, this icon is what allows us to change the settings of all the different components and widgets of our application. So in this case, I'm just going to call it my RAG app, and then I'll just save. All right, so now I'll click here to create a widget. All right, just click on the blank area. And over here, we can see that there are a number of widgets available to us. So these up here are input widgets where a user can type in an input, or you have static text. And we have a document input or upload widget, which we'll be using later. And then we have the generation widgets, which is a text generation. It generates based on one prompt. It's not like a chat interface. So this widget, you'll use it for things that you don't need to chat for purposes where you don't need to chat with, or things that you need to continuously replicate in future. All right. And then we have image generation. So the good thing about the AWS Partyrock is that you can generate your own images. Okay, it has a stable diffusion available. And lastly, we are going to use this chatbot widget where you can interact interactively with the large language model. So we are just going to have our document widget here. Okay, and we are going to change this widget title to my file. Okay, and save it. All right, now we have this widget to upload our files. We are going to create our chatbot widget now. So just click chatbot here. Okay, so over here we have this prompt. This prompt is not quite to our purpose, so we'll delete it. So I'll just have this prompt, answer questions about. Okay, if I have to refer to my chat widget here, I mean my file widget, I'll need to say at my file. Okay. All right. And then we have labels. Okay, so the labels will be the name of this widget. So I'll just call it my chat. And over here under model, we can choose the model that is available to us. So the default is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. All right. As you can see, there are quite a number of models available to us. And over here, you can see this like a series of 3 bars. One black bar means that it should take up less computing resources. 2 black bars means more, and 3 bars means you'll take up a lot of computing resources. So this will count towards your usage limits. So for now, we'll just use the default for everything. Over here, we see advanced settings where we have temperature and top P. So these 2 settings will kind of influence the response behavior of the large language models. The higher these values are, the more random the output will become. But we'll leave it as it is for now, and then we'll save this. Okay, so now we have our chat app ready. Okay. So, yeah. So I have prepared a few files. Okay. The first file I have here is sort of like a running training plan. Okay. All right. So the plan I have, week 1, do this, day 2, day 3, and all this. All right. So I'm going to upload this file to my app. Okay. So now I'm going to ask it. Okay, I need to press play to activate the app. I'll ask this app, what is this file about? Okay, and true enough, you can read the contents of this file properly. Okay. Now, let me ask it to summarize my file. Now, what are the activities each day for every week and the duration of each session summarized by the week? So as you can see, yeah, you can properly read all these tables. Okay. Now the problem is I have so many events that I need to mark down in my calendar. How do I make the large language model useful? So I can ask it to, with this prompt over here, create a Google Calendar URL for each session starting from 2nd December. Each day, each week should have a separate URL. Each session should start with from 6 p.m. and each session should have at least a day of rest in between. Schedule the last session for each week on a Saturday. Limit to the first 3 links. I have this line because I don't want it to produce everything. It'll take too much time. Okay, so as you can see, it produces a Google Calendar link for me. So instead of manually creating all these links, I can just ask the large language model to do it for me. And if I click the link, I can see that, oh yeah, great, 2nd December, 6 to 6:30. Okay, yeah. So this is how you can use this app to make your files or make it more useful for you. Okay, now I'll go through to a second example. All right. So I have a second example over here. So I have a bank account, bank statement. All right. So this is a sample statement from DBS. Okay. So as you can see, this is how it looks like, and I'm going to upload it. Okay. So I'm going to chat with it now. Again, I'm going to ask it the same few questions. What is this file about? Okay, great. It reads it properly. Now I'm going to ask it, about other things like what are the outstanding trades and what is the total. So if we look down here, outstanding trades, where are my outstanding trades? Okay, outstanding trades. So over here, we have insurance, Great Eastern, and all these seem to turn up properly. Right? Now, if I ask it this kind of question, what do you think will happen? Okay, do you think the Noble Group trade was a good idea? So if you are an investor or trader, you would know that the Noble Group was in some kind of trouble. Okay, so obviously, the large language model, there's some guardrails that are implemented in the large language model. So sometimes they'll say, I can't give you advice on this. But based on this, you can see that the large language model has actually augmented the question with its inbuilt knowledge. It knows that in 2018, 2019, Noble Group had a major restructuring. So this is pretty cool. Now, I want to show you something a little bit different. So over here, I think this is quite a common problem where we are sent a PDF statement. All right. So the problem comes when you want to have this in Excel, but it's a pain to kind of populate this manually. So we can use a large language model for this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another widget. I'm going to have where is it? Text generation widget. Okay. Now I'm going to have this prompt. It's quite long. It's quite a specific prompt. So convert all deposit tables in the account summary section in my file to a CSV format. Okay, CSV is a comma separated variable, which Excel can read. So remove all commas between numbers because the commas are actually what separates the values in a CSV file. So it can be problematic if this happens. All right, create a first column called date in this format. From accounts that contain multiple currencies, for each row, replicate the account and account number details. Include an additional column to indicate the currency of base currency balance. For example, SGD, Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. Between the two balance columns, do not say anything else. So usually you want to say this if you want to have an output that purely outputs code. Because when you copy and paste it, if the large language model, adds like, oh, here is the reply. You want to avoid that. Okay, so we'll save this. Okay, and I'll just click play. Because it's using like a static prompt, you don't need to chat with it. Okay, so now you can see that it's producing this comma separated variable content. Okay, it's done. So all I need to do is copy this to a clipboard and open my notepad. Okay, I have my notepad here. I'm going to copy all these to my notepad. And then I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this as a, whoops. Okay, I'll just call it deposits.csv. Okay, and now I'm going to open it here. Oops. Yeah, so obvious, we can see that, oops, let me just try to compare that with this. So you can see that, oh, yeah, great. Basically, I'm able to kind of convert this into an Excel readable format with my own customizations and all that. So this is the power of how you can use the RAG with your own files and help you with your productivity stuff. Okay. And so I think that comes to the end of my demonstration. All right. And we will be having the Q&A now. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Seung-Chun, for sharing about RAG. That was really great presentation.
Oops.